Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to this webinar organized by GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, in the run-up to the UN Food Systems Summit. I'm Shuli Ghosh. I'm delighted to be moderating this third interview cruncher, where we'll be discussing how to build our food markets forward better. Now, in our last interview cruncher, we examined the role of small and medium enterprises and how they've been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We looked at the GAIN initiative, keeping food markets working, and how important that is in supporting key food workers so that we can continue to get fresh, nutritious food to consumers. So what we want to do today is really drill down into the concept of better food markets. We're looking at the idea of smart markets. How do we reduce food loss? How do we manage waste better? How do we become more sustainable and really build our food markets back in a stronger, more sustainable way? I'm delighted to be joined by three experts who will be sharing their knowledge with us today. Betty Kibara, Director of the Food Initiative at the Rockefeller Foundation for the Africa region. We also have Syed Muntasir Ridwan, National Coordinator of the Sun Business Network in Bangladesh, and Francisco Muchidenye, Consultant in Market Reconstructions and WASH for GAIN Mozambique. Now, during the course of the next hour, we'll be hearing from them. I'll be putting questions to them. And I also want to hear from you, the audience. So if you have any questions or any comments that you want to make, simply type them into the Q&A box on your screen there, and we'll get through as many of them as possible. So let me introduce my first panelist, Betty Kibara from the Rockefeller Foundation at the Africa region. Betty, great to have you with us. Now, you lead the Smart Food Markets of the Future workstream. Can we start with an overview of what is the concept of a smart market and why is this so important when we talk about transforming our food systems?
Thanks, Shirley. And to answer your question, I would like to share a story of a lady that I met most recently at the market. Her name is Jane. She is 45 years old, a fruit and vegetable trader at an open market in Kenya. Jane loses about 20 to 30% of her produce due to post-harvest losses at the market. Jane has no access to clean water to keep her vegetables fresh. She has no access to electric power, even for charging her phone. She lacks even good and basic sanitation. And when the rain comes, she has to cover her produce with the polythene bags, and she runs for shelter. This is not the story of Jane alone. It's a story of very many informal traders who serve the last mile of our food systems in the continent. And in most cases, they tend to be forgotten. The open food markets are a source of food for more than 90% of the population, and they serve both the urban and rural population. And they're also a nexus between the smallholder farmers and consumers of their produce, and they play a central role in food and nutrition security, being the central point where the household access diverse food commodities. However, in the current forms, we all know the open food markets have failed to realize their full potential in driving business, distribution of benefits to market players, and often sometimes present a health risk due to poor food handling challenges associated with sanitation and hygiene. And so with the COVID-19 pandemic has revealed that well-opened markets are a key component of a sustainable food system. They are not built for the crisis like this. And urban food markets, they actually lack the infrastructure, resulting to overcrowded spaces that have potential to transmit COVID-19 and also other food-related diseases. Food markets, on the other hand, as you have just clearly mentioned, There is also a lot of post-harvest losses and wastes at the market, leading to high transaction costs that drive up food prices. So to improve the food environment and to build back better infrastructure post-COVID, the Rockefeller Foundation has supported the Eastern African Grain Council in partnership also with IDEO.org to invest in redesigning and reimagining the smart market of the future. And let me just say that for now, the smart markets, the way we are defining it, doesn't exist, but it's going to exist in the next couple of months. And so the smart market is actually a name that we coined as the Rockefeller Foundation. So then to answer your question, what is the concept of or the definition of the smart markets? We are imagining a smart markets of the future that is designed and constructed to provide sufficient space for circulation and presentation of food commodities for sale to client in a more dignified manner, like than the way I've described, Jane. We are looking at a market that harnesses solar energy from the vast roofs of the market to power the market for lighting. We know that there is emerging electric bikes who can tap into that power. We can do some basic agro-processing. The foods are just fruits that are about to go bad. They can be transformed to juices. And then we have, cold storage. In most cases, doesn't exist. We have some successes, for example, in Nigeria, but that's a component that you can harness solar power that is God given to us in Africa. 365 days, we have a lot of power that we can harness for drying and for value addition. And I think this was also very interesting that for every hour a fruit and vegetable is not in a temperature controlled environment, you actually lose about 12 hours of shelf life. So we are seeking to harness and leverage ongoing solar hardware cost reduction. I think over the last 10 years, we've seen a reduction of about 69% for solar panels and inverters and other components. So the third component of our definition of a smart market is one which is set up with an efficient water management system, waste management system that collects and sorts and removes waste that can be reused into other purposes, for example, composting, and it can also be used to raise insects for animal feed as a substitute for soya and fish meal. We also envision that smart markets would also have a mini processing solution, I think that I just mentioned before. And then we can harness water from the roof. I mean, God has given us rain for 6 months in a year in Africa. And when you go to the market, sometimes you don't even find any tapped water or any rainwater collected. We have an opportunity to design markets that are different, that can have enough water, sufficient water, or at least some amount of water that can be collected from the roof. Then the issue of enhancing food safety and traceability. I do believe many countries, including Kenya, the standards do exist, but in most cases, maybe they're not even being enforceable. So we are looking at a market where we can, for example, test in Kenya, KS 1758. We can have a market where we begin to pilot some of those standards among the farmers and traders, so that we can also begin to certify some of those traders and farmers and begin to disrupt the system. We're also thinking about the smart markets that is also digitized. We are now talking about data and digital revolution, but in most cases, it's even hard for one to even know how much produce has been sold in the market, the different trends, so that we can also be able to continue to capture how consumers are consuming different foods and diverse foods in the market. And we also know that
I was going to say, there's a lot of things that you're talking about there, which is amazing. New technology, digitization, water management, waste management, and new sources of energy, which are really exciting when we look at how we're building smart markets. Give me a concrete example of something that you've already done, which is making a difference.
Wow, that's good, and I hope that we can project an example of such markets. Do you have the slides?
Yeah, I'm looking at some slides now. So talk us through what we're looking at.
Okay, Okay, I don't see anything on. Okay, I see. Okay, maybe you just start from the beginning. So as you look at those slides, in partnership with the Eastern African Grain Council, we are setting up the first greenfield smart markets in Naivasha in Kenya, which is mainly going to be trading in fish and fruits and vegetables. And the key lessons that we have learned during our design phase is that when you're designing a market, you must design with the users in mind. And sometimes the feedback from the users has been ignored in the past. And so when we have had extensive human-centered design research in partnership with IDEO.org. And so what you're seeing now, you will see, let me just give me a minute. Yes, okay, that's what you're seeing now is just an overlay. You can move to the next slide. So that's kind of the design that we have come up with jointly with Jomo Kenyatta University. What you see up there is a solar-powered roof, and you're also able to collect the water from the roof. We have also gotten feedback from the users that sometimes as we are doing story buildings for markets, their preference is to keep the market really open so that you're not just restricting yourself to one entrance. So I know you can't see it very, very clearly, but on the side, any trader has an advantage because there is no like a particular door. We have retractable walls where you can just pull down the shutter. And then at the back, what you're seeing, the white stuff behind there is the place where you do the waste management and collection. And so we envision that this market in partnership with the Nakuru County government is going to serve more than 20,000 people in that community. And we're going to have, we are looking at a couple of outcomes, including reduced post-harvest losses because the fish which is going to be stored there is going to be stored in a cold storage. We're also looking at reducing energy in the long run because of use of solar. We're looking at ensuring that we have access to safe and affordable and nutritious foods. And above all, we also want to contribute to the circular economy. And for the government, I know they are getting excited because it's one of the markets where we are going to be digitizing. And it has been shown that once you digitize a system, you can increase the revenue collection by about 30%. So look out for the market. It's going to be coming hopefully by the end of the year.
It looks brilliantly impressive, I have to say. And the ideas that you're looking at there make total sense. You know, of course, the government is excited by that. Talk to me a bit about waste management, because of course, this is one of the concerns. We have millions and millions of tons of waste every year, but we can manage that better. How do we be more productive with the waste?
Thank you so much. And that's a good question because one of the ways, first we can say that, for example, Kenya, we generate about 8 million metric tons a year. And we have an opportunity to convert that waste in more environmental friendly ways. One of the things that come out in my mind is they use the black soldier fly, which is an insect that can be used as alternative protein to produce animal feed. Normally 70% of the cost of feed is because of protein. And so we are looking at substituting pelagic fish and soy, and then we use black soldier fly, which has been domesticated. It's very well researched. It has very high protein levels, and it also has some of the outputs include biofertilizer and dried larvae. So, for example, globally, the BSF market, the black soldier fly market, is estimated to be $108 million as last year but one, and by 2030 we are expecting it to go to 2.5 billion. The Rockefeller Foundation and ICIPE, the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, we have been partnering, and we have really been developing the sector and in particular testing business models for scaling this. And so far we have about supported, in partnership with also IDRC, 50 SMEs in Kenya and more than 2,000 farmers who are raising the black soldier fly. I think what is so exciting is that the feed millers, about 80% of the feed millers are actually willing to use the black soldier fly. the farmers are willing to use the black soldier fly. And it's been tested, it's not new. AgriProtein in South Africa, Protix in the Netherlands, all of them have really commercialized this. And so then to answer your question directly, through these smart markets, what we are doing, we are designing an efficient waste management system where the waste gets sorted and redirected for use to raise insects. And for me, I can tell you that when I look at the insect-based feed and how it relates to the smart markets, is that we are actually converting the waste into gold. And I do believe this is the next frontier in animal protein in Africa. And a few things pop out to me. Africa has a comparative advantage for production of insects, for feed. First, we have a lot of raw materials in the continent. Our cost of production are quite low. We are on about 70 cents of a dollar per kilo, compared to places like Europe, which is between $3 and $4. We have vibrant youths who are really looking at investing in insect-based feed. And it's very interesting, among the companies that we have helped to support, and even the ones who have helped themselves to support themselves, most of them actually are women. And so, and then we're also seeing governments coming in, enabling environment. For example, Kenya most recently published protocols for production of BSF. We have also seen Rwanda is now finalizing its insect-based feed. So, and investors are also interested. So in a nutshell, we have an opportunity to convert that market waste into gold.
I think that's some really great insights into what the Rockefeller Foundation is doing. And I know there'll be lots of questions about that. Betty, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Let's introduce our next speaker, Syed Muntasir Ridwan, National Coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition Business Network in Bangladesh. Ridwan, good to have you with us. So markets in Dhaka, I mean, notoriously overcrowded, aren't they? Just talk us through a little bit about how COVID-19 changed the internal dynamics in terms of behavior of both the vendors and the consumers.
Right, thank you so much, Shirley, and it's a pleasure to join this webinar. Just to give you a macro view of the scale of the markets in Dhaka, the informal sector that moves the food, it's 70% of the food that's coming to these markets are from the informal sector. And all this food for about 220 million people are converging towards Dhaka in this informal wet markets. So it usually is a very thriving place, very crowded. And what has happened when the government announced the general holiday from the 24th of March, there was a panic among the consumers whether they should go to the market, whether they can catch infection if they go to the market. There was a general fear among the vendors whether they should go to the market. There was due to the disruptions in the flow of goods, they were not getting access to the usual flow of goods. In this wet markets, they have large institutional buyers who they sell the products. So and it's a day in and day out business, so they depend on that cash flow basis. And when this stopped, they had no access to finance to continue their business next day. They even did not have the capacity to run the business for the next few months where they will get the money. So most of the vendors actually went to their native village. The government of Bangladesh has done a fantastic work to support this informal sector, starting from giving the stimulus package. But it's a massive sector. There was a job loss of 16.4 million people in the process. So it's very difficult for government to really pull up everyone together. But this process, what we have done after coming to the market and working with with the vendors, with the
Yeah,
market
tell us about
association.
that, because you've done a lot of work with two informal markets and are very much involved in the Keeping Food Markets Working initiative. What has happened with that? How has that intervened, and how has that made a difference?
Right, right. So what we did is we set up COVID-19 response units inside the market, along in partnership with the city corporation, with the ward councillor, the local political body, and also the market association. And the market association was at the helm of running this. And their business was getting lost. So usually this type of public health measures comes at the least bit of priority to them. But when we started working with them, and what we started beginning with was we collected information, data on a bi-monthly basis on what the consumer perceptions were, and what the vendors perceptions were, and what sort of support that they required, so that the market can jump back to its previous place. And we also did a monthly meeting with the market committee to validate the findings that we are getting from the different surveys, the bi-monthly surveys that we are doing. And based on the information that we got in those surveys, we mobilized very quick emergency support, like distribution of masks to the vendors, installed a public announcement system, set up little boundaries, like a fencing around the market, so that this social distancing in a very crowded place in Dhaka needs a little bit of a physical infrastructural design. And also, it's so crowded, even setting up a hand washing station. Initially, what we have seen, many of these hand washing stations were taken up or it got stolen away. But what we did is that we we had an architect firm, a public health engineering team working on it, that how to make this system so that it doesn't get stolen and it's visible to the consumers, so that they understand that proper steps are being taken, that the confidence are being built back, so that the consumers come back. And what we have today, one of our latest bi-monthly bulletins, when we started, there were 87% of the consumers, they were concerned whether they will catch COVID-19 if they come to the market. Now that figure has dropped to 10%. So yeah, so that's what I think we can say we have achieved through our work in the market.
Confidence building measures, a lot of information, a lot of data. That makes all the difference. We've been hearing from Betty about the concept of smart markets and how we can change the way markets operate in the future. What's your view on that? How do you see the transformation of informal markets with their current infrastructure into this idea of smart markets of the future? Is that going to be easy or difficult?
Yeah, it's so let me just start with it's an interesting thing that we never thought of. We never looked closely into these informal markets, how important they are, and what are how fragile these markets are. When I used to go to this market as a kid, my father used to take me, and I always noticed the floor of the markets are wet. And I used to think, okay, maybe it's the monsoon, it's the rain. But when I looked closely, it's the poor drainage system and the seeping of water from the drainage system not functioning makes the floor of the markets wet. And so the drainage system is not functioning, and that it creates so many different problems in terms of creating food safety risk. And we never realized that these two markets where we are working, they are some of the oldest market, and they don't have proper ventilation system. The temperatures during the summer go so high, And you know that when the temperatures is too high, the microbial activities go up. There is some other food sales. And West, Betty was talking about waste management. They have a recycling system, but they compile or dump all the waste in front of a gate or somewhere inside the market, which are coming in contact with the food items. And also, those who are coming through the backward gates, they usually dump the waste at the backward gates where there is less flow of people. But yeah, it's in the open space.
Not so much waste management as waste dumping, which obviously needs to be taken account. Ridwan, thank you very much indeed for that. Really interesting stuff. And we thank you for your insights there. Let's introduce our final speaker, Francisco Muchadenye. He's a consultant on market reconstruction at GAIN Mozambique. Francisco, good to have you with us. So just tell us what has been the impact of the Keeping Food Markets Working Programme at the level of government, cities and GAIN partners and stakeholders. And unmute yourself before you start. There you go. My lip reading skills aren't very good, so okay,
thanks a lot, Shuli. Let's first, before I answer your question, let me start to present the importance of rebuilding our market forward better. Well, when we want to build our market forward better, we need to cover 4 points. The first point is an upgrade of physical infrastructure. The second point is related with improved infrastructure in terms of market organization. The third point is related with the food safety, which result in food loss in production. And the fourth point is the improved management of solid waste. When we want to improve our market, to building our market forward better, we need to take in consideration these 4 points. These 4 aspects is so important, and we want to building our market forward better. Well, at the point of upgrading physical infrastructure, it's just for better food safety as well as occupational health through the following example. We have the first example is related for the building birch. Building birch, it's allowing a better work condition for vendors. The second example we have here in the slide is a water supply system, just for cleaning, food, set up hand washing facility, mainly in this critical period of coronavirus, because we have to put in our mind when you want to most of the market nowadays, there is a problem of the hand washing facility. So when we want to build our market forward better, we need to put in place the water system just to cover in terms of the hand washing in the market. Then we have a draining system just to meet the various needs across the market. We have liquid waste system to meet the needs across the market. I just want to highlight this difference, the difference between draining system and liquid waste system. Draining system normally is just to collect the water from the rain, and liquid waste system is just to collect the water from the toilets. We have another example is the cold rooms are powered by the solar panel to secure the running of cold supply chain. The last one we have here is a market maintenance program. This is one of the most aspects that we need to take into consideration, because maintenance is one of the most important things in the market. If you want to have our market not degrade easily, our market can during long as much as possible, we need to put in place a maintenance program. Otherwise, our market is going to degrade so easily. The second point is related to improve the infrastructure in terms of the market organization, which entails allowing better flow of the people and goods in out of the market, just provide the proper slaughter houses, allowing a location for selling food, allowing location for selling meat and for selling vegetable and fruit. Well, we need to organize very well our market just to avoid a cross-contamination. What does it mean cross-contamination? Cross-contamination is when we have some vendor selling fish, we have another vendor or my neighbor selling meat, and you have another vendor selling vegetables. This can because when we are selling most of the time when we are selling a meat, the meat can produce when meat is let me explain in different way. Just to avoid, because we cannot normally we cannot mix a meat, a vegetable, and the fish at the same place. It can be dangerous. They can change the virus one product to another product. That is the most important thing. We need to divide. We need to allocate the fish in some place, the meat in another place. Otherwise, we are going to have a problem in this context of cross contamination. The third point is related with the increased food safety, which result in food losses production. To do so, we need to ensure the following aspect. The first aspect that need to ensure to have a food safe and that the vendor are selling their products that the vendor are selling their products in cleaning and adequate stores. The second applies is related with that all waste in the market are collected and disposed in the proper way. The third point is related with that the market area and food are protected from environment hazards, including rain, sun, dust, insects, rodents, and other kind of animals. That the refrigerator or cold room is made available to conserve the foods. That the basic infrastructure to promote sanitation, such as toilet, hand washing facilities, safe water supply, and draining, are available and made and maintenance properly. This is the aspect that we need to take in consideration just to make sure, just to make sure and increase the food safety to reduce the food loss. The last aspect is related with the improvement of solid waste. To improve to improve management of solid waste, it just requires the following aspect. The first aspect is just to set up a management commission in the market. The second aspect is a placement of the different type of storage container. The third aspect is conduct a pest control in the market. And the last one is related with allocation, internal transport, if necessary, to collect the waste once the container are filled or once daily after service. So I would like to highlight some point here is just to relate to conduct a pest control. Well, mainly in the market, normally that they have a slaughter house, we need to conduct a pest control very straight. Otherwise, we can bring a disease in the market, a virus, and another kind of problem. So we need to conduct this pest control very straight in the market. Another aspect that I would like to highlight as well is in terms of placement of different kind of containers. We need to place the container in our market just to avoid a waste management on the ground along the market, because as we can see in low-income country, we can see it's a normal, we see a waste along the street. So it's because of lack of container in the market. Just to finalize, I would like to bring the present and the future. Related, what does it mean building our market forward better in Mozambique case? I want to bring a real example to explain what does it really mean in building forward or building back or building our market forward better in one real example that we have here in Mozambique. Well, just to let you know that in the past, in 2019, Mozambique was affected by the cyclone, and the cyclone made landfall in Mozambique, concretely in Beira City. As we can see in the picture here, we can see the market so devastated, was totally devastated by the cyclone. As we can see here, in the first picture, we can see damaged roof. And the third picture, we can see here a food loss that is producing a waste in the market. Another picture, we can see damaged stalls. Another picture, we can see damaged porch. In the last one, we can see vendors selling on the ground. So just to let you know as well, gain through the donor funds, they join efforts. Gain through the donor funds, and they join efforts with the partner just to rebuild again this market, just allow a good environment, a good environment for vendor and for consumer in the market. Here we can see the past situation and the future situation of the market. The first picture, we can see how the market was look like before the intervention, and the second picture, we can see how the market looked like post rehabilitation. Well, this upgrade of this market or this requalification will increase the number of the stalls in the market. We are going to have a more stall than we had before. And we are going to have as well, we are going to have a specific place or specific porch to sell meat. And in this specific place to sell meat, you're going to have a cold room just to store the meat after the time service. And if we can look well, we can look at this picture very well. We can see at the right side on the top, there will be a porch to sell meat, to sell fish. And in this side on the sell meat as well, we're going to have a cold room just to store the fish after the time service. In the middle of the market, we're going to have the space where the vendor is going to sell vegetables. And the right side as well, down the right side, we're going to see we can see the stalls where the vendor is going to sell the fruits after these post construction. And I just want to let you know as well, in terms of waste management, we're going to have a system just to dealing with the waste management in this market. We're going to place in the four corners of this market. Inside of the market, we're going to place a plastic container just to collect the waste inside of the market. And outside of the market, we're going to place as well a metallic container just to collect the waste that once the plastic container is filled, will be to deposit outside of the market until the garbage truck come and collect the waste. And as well, we're going to this market is going to have as well the drainage system to collect the water from the rain, and it's going to have an office for the people that will be in charge in the market. And as well, you can see, if you will look well in this picture, we're going to see this market is going to have a garden just to make our market more fresh. And in terms of fighting against the coronavirus, we're going to install in the entrance the two water hand washing station just to washing our hands before the consumer or even the vendor get to the market. They have to wash their hands. In the ground, we're going to have some system just to clean our foods before people get in the market, just to disinfect the feet before getting in the market. Well, our plan for the future in this market is not late like that. It's just to install the solar panel in this market, just to reduce just to avoid the market pay bill per month to the public, to use a public power. The market is going to use a solar panel just to cover all the need inside of the market. And
can I ask? It's a very comprehensive description, and you're clearly utilising all sectors and thinking about everything very quickly, because I do want to get to some. We're getting some questions in from the audience, and I do want to get to those. Is this a model that can be scaled up and used elsewhere? All the things that you've thought about there, can this be used in other regions, other countries?
Yes, it can be used in another country, another region, because it's a simple model. What this market is like, it can be a model of smart market, because what we want to put in this market, we want to upgrade this market to be compared as a shop, as a super shop, not to be a normal market. Our intention is to put in play, or to enable this market to be a smart market, to be compared with the super shop in the future.
Great. Okay, Francisco, thank you very much indeed. So as I say, we're going to start the group discussion in just a moment. First, though, let's take a closer look at what GAIN and its partners are doing to keep food markets working. Right, it's time for our question and answer session. Our panelists are standing by to answer your questions. Just a reminder, if you have any questions or comments that you want to make, just type them into the box on your screen there, and we'll get through as many of them as possible. Okay, so I want to start with a question about collaboration, because that was one of the things that came out of the video that we've just looked at there. And we've had a few questions about that coming in from the audience. So I'm going to ask you a question about stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders, the best partners to work with when we talk about transforming food markets? There are a lot of different actors that can play a role. Who has the power to affect change? Betty, let me ask you that, because you are one of the, the partners, one of the big players that are making a difference. So when it comes to partnerships, what should we look for?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think to begin with, you have seen a lot of alignment between our work, that what I'm talking about, and what GAIN is talking about. So we are in conversation to make sure that we work together, and where it's possible, we synergize each other for those selected markets. So GAIN then becomes a very good example of a partner. We also do believe the government is key, because, for example, in Kenya, what we are doing, we are partnering with the county governments because markets are decentralized. And with or without us, we're going to do markets, but now what we are bringing in is the smart solutions. So the government has the ability to really scale, and that's why we are co-funding the market. It's not just totally funded by Rockefeller, it's funded by the market, the government and the foundation. And the third important partner is the private sector. We have had feedback from some of the county governments, and they're saying they have been receiving requests from the private sector to set up markets which are driven by PPP markets, private-public partnerships. So we have an opportunity to encourage, for example, the private sector. If private sector is investing in real estate. I don't see any reason why the private sector can also not invest in markets. And we have a few examples. For example, the Nairobi Farmers Market, which is an investment by an individual or a group of individuals. And so what we are doing as part of the smart markets, we are developing a business case for investing in the market, because we want to make sure that we have all the costings right, we have all the benefits, and we look at the smart markets as a business that can be scaled either by the government or the private sector. And then I would say so many other stakeholders in the market, the development partners who are interested in, for example, supporting circular economy, then those becomes very, very important. Yeah.
I would
so
say
just to highlight,
if you make a good business case, then it's probably way easier to get stakeholders on board. Ridwan, what's been your experience in Bangladesh in getting the authorities on board, getting the market officials on board, getting the government on board?
So in Bangladesh, the Dhaka City Corporation, the municipality, is the core, has the core responsibility. But to make the market functional, there are different actors from different departments, coming from different sectors. And what we are trying to do now is to bring in a government, developing a technical working group that can bring in all these technical actors who have the roles and responsibility to make the market functional. We are doing a mapping exercise to understand which are where are the gaps in the service provision, and why the gaps is taking place. Is there a resource constraint? Is there a lack of somewhere the two lack of coordination? And that what we want to make is develop a coordinated strategy which can put forward to from the technical working group to the highest government body, so that the changes can take place. We can catalyze the system and move from working in two markets and replicate the practices across the 150 or so markets in Dhaka city.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. We had a question come in via social media earlier. This is a question about sustainability. How do you ensure that sustainably produced food is at the heart of any effort to build back better? Francisco, in your experience, when you're looking at rebuilding the market after the cyclone and after COVID-19, how do we put sustainable food at the heart of that? And you need to unmute again.
Well, just to ensure the sustainability of the food in the market, in my opinion, we need to ensure the food safety in the market first. In terms of the food safety, well, I would consider, like, the first example. I would say, like, we need to make sure our market have a proper waste management. Our market have a proper draining system, and our market have a proper toilets. This can be useful if we want to make our food sustainable. Because if we have our market, if we have in the market, for instance, if our market is not organized, if our market is a total mess, it will be difficult to make sustainable to ensure sustainability of the food in the market.
Another question from the audience. This is quite a good one. When we talk about food safety, accessibility, affordability, do we look at improving all of those simultaneously, or should we be prioritizing? For example, food safety, should that be the priority given the current concerns about spreading disease? I don't know who wants to take that one. Betty, should we be, when we look at building smart markets, what should be the priorities? Because consumers, at the end of the day, what consumers want are good quality food at good prices. So what should be the priority? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's really hard for me to say which we should prioritize. I think if it is possible, we need to do all of them at the same time. For example, on food safety, We are doing a pilot on KS 1758 because the standards exist, but they exist somewhere in papers, but when you go to the ground, you don't see it. So I would say that food safety is a priority, but as much as it's a priority, it's also the question of affordability and availability. So I can't say that you need to prioritize on any. I think we have to really aim for all of them. And yeah, that's my response.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got a question here about how things differ on the ground from country to country. Culturally, the way markets operate in one country might be different to another. Are there policies which might work better in one country than another? For example, Ridwan, let me ask you, are there any policies which have been shown to be more effective in Bangladesh that are working for you there on the ground?
See, there are food safety policies in place, but as I was mentioning, that it's so massive, the enforcement always becomes a difficulty. Let me just also talk about the food safety issue. Is that for low-income consumers, food safety is not a major priority for them. Affordability is the priority. But whenever the government take on the food markets or all the overall food system, is that a food is not food until it's safe. So food safety is also a major priority. So yeah, so there are policies in place, numerous policies in place, but it's a matter how we institutionally structure it and how do we ensure that there are enforcements.
So is this a regulation problem, Francisco? Is this a question of getting regulators on board or local regulations to be enforced more stringently?
Sorry, my internet is not well. Can you repeat?
When it comes to food safety, to ensure the safety of food for consumers, do we have to get the regulators on board more? Is it, or should local regulations be strengthened?
Yes. Well, to ensure the food safety, normally we need to have well, normally what I like to bring it to pick up some example of what is being happening here in Mozambique in terms of the food safety. I was talking with some women. She said that they don't want to go in the market in this period of time because our market is organized. There is no food safety in the market, because most of the vendors, they are selling their product without wearing masks, and when they are talking, where they are talking, when it can bring some, they can transmit, they can spread the virus until their products that they are selling. So most of the people nowadays, some of the consumers, they don't want to go in the market because they say that our market is mess, our market is disorganized, there's no food safe in the market, because government is not put in place the real measure in the market. They compromise the food safety. So I would say like that, this program, they keep food market working. What if the impact of keep food market working program? It will trigger the government just to bring a discussion on the table, just to discuss how important is organizing the market, how important to make the market working properly, to make the market in good condition, to make it the maintenance in the market. It is just to allow them to to increase and to secure, to make sure that the market, there is a food safe in the market.
So we really have to bring governments on board, market officials on board, health officials on board, so we can deliver good, safe food to consumers. Very quick last question. and this is about feedback. I mean, we've talked a lot about changing the way markets operating, using new technology, using sustainable energy, better waste management, water management. What kind of feedback are you guys getting from vendors, from consumers, from market officials about all these changes? I don't know who wants to answer that. Is that one for you, Ridwan, or maybe Betty?
Yes, sure. Oh, sorry, I can go. So one of the things we did when we came up with the idea of smart market is to acknowledge that we need to get feedback from the users. So, and we have interviewed, traders and market actors in more than 15 markets. So the key feedback that we are getting from them is that for some, they just need a basic infrastructure, a roof over their heads. For some, they are excited about the opportunity for cold storage. The other thing we are hearing from them is that when markets are built, when you're constructing a market and then you move them from the main market to a temporary place, and then you bring them back, they don't get consulted a lot in terms of even space allocation. And then they are getting, let's say, like uniform tables for displaying their wares. And so it becomes a little bit difficult. If you deal with watermelon, you're given a space of maybe 1 by 2 meters, but you're a wholesaler. So what they have really suggested on how you can even do modular system, how you help them with their storage, that they can configure it differently. And then they, of course, talk about the issue of waste being really not very pleasing. Like when you hear a market, waste has not been collected for the last 1 month. You cannot even just imagine how
they would complain a lot about that. Yes, I think that's totally understandable. Guys, we're coming to the end of this session. Yeah. It's been a really interesting discussion. I feel as though we could go on for another hour, but alas, we are down to the final few minutes. So what I would like to ask you now is each of my speakers to give a final thought, a final key message, which we can think about when we look at the idea of smart markets. Ridwan, why don't we start with you? What's your final message?
The smart market should be cost conscious so that it does not impose a cost on the vendors or on the consumers, but it should be functional, and it should ensure that the consumers have the convenience and they get the amenities, but it should fit into the context of a low resource constraint. So that's where I see a smart market. Thanks.
Good one. Thank you very much indeed. Francisco, what is your final thought?
Well, I would like to say that smart markets should be the market that must contain a water system, a draining system, then contain a cold room to store a fish, vegetable, and meat. And as well need to have a solar panel to make the market sustainable, and to have a plan to digitalize payment along the market.
Francisco, thank you very much. And the last word goes to you, Betty. What's your final thought on the importance of smart markets?
Okay, in Africa, we have a saying that says that all roads lead to markets, and a food market is central component of a food system, and there is no food system transformation without transforming markets. Markets cannot be left behind.
Some brilliant insights there. Thank you, all of you, very much indeed for joining this GAIN discussion. Great to have you with us, and thank you to the audience for your questions. We will be sending everyone who took part a link to the video and a link to any of the information that you've seen here today. Also, do keep an eye on GAIN's website. There will be more webinars and more discussions coming up, and we would love to have you join us for those. It just is left for me to say thank you and have a very good rest of your day.